What do you think would happen if you joked with a royal guard? Could you make them lose their composure and withstand all the mockery? Or would you face an unforgettable lesson? Don't assume it's just a prank, because when you make this mistake, the consequences won't be what you expect. On a peaceful morning in London, with only a weak sunlight and the streets still quiet, the scene before Buckingham Palace unfolds with quiet power. The royal guards, in their solemn uniforms, stand firm, guarding the historic landmarks of the United Kingdom. Although this peaceful moment seems unbreakable, at that very moment, a tourist, with a face full of impatience and curiosity, decides to challenge the endurance of these guards. He, a young man, sees the guards standing as still as statues, seemingly motionless, and thinks this is the perfect opportunity to make a joke. He holds up his phone, starts recording, and yells, "Look, does the statue know how to smile?" With a challenging smile on his face, he continues to mock, this time shouting louder. "What are you doing there? Are you a guard or a real statue?" Some people around him start to look, somewhat surprised, and even laugh along. But what he doesn't realize is that, although no one can see, even a single glance from the guard is enough to send a message. Their eyes aren't just silent, they contain unwavering patience. And once someone decides to challenge that, they are not afraid to let the person know that disrespectful actions can lead to serious consequences. Just a few seconds later, a police officer walks up, gently but clearly asking the young man to stop. "You don't understand. This is not a joke," the officer says firmly. The young man, still clueless, is then asked by the police officer to leave the area. As the event concludes, many of the surrounding tourists witness the silent shame. They begin to realize that actions like these are not only disrespectful to the guards, but also violate deep-rooted cultural rules of this country. Why are there such rules? Could it be just a simple joke? Or is it a big lesson about respect that we need to learn? Royal guards are not there to be the target of jokes or mockery. Their job is extremely strict and requires an unimaginable level of patience. These soldiers not only protect royal landmarks, but they also symbolize respect for the traditions and history of the United Kingdom. They are an integral part of the royal ceremonial machinery, and their duty is not a simple job. Every day, the guards must stand firm for hours, unable to change positions, speak, or look around. Their patience is something to be admired, as they face everything from the curiosity of tourists to acts of disrespect. Unlike regular soldiers, they do not have the freedom to leave when they feel tired or stressed. Every step, every gesture of theirs is monitored. Imagine the feeling of having to stand still for hours in the midst of a crowd mocking and jeering, but you can't react or move. That's the daily life of a royal guard. Surely there will be times when they feel like giving up, but they persist in carrying out their duty. Royal guards are not just soldiers, they are living symbols of the United Kingdom. This tradition has lasted for centuries, from the early days of the royal armies to today. These guards not only protect the palaces, but also the cultural and historical values of the country. When you mock them, you're mocking the respect for an entire civilization, for those who have sacrificed to protect what they are safeguarding. They stand in the shadows, silently performing their duties without seeking attention or recognition. And because of this, disrespect toward them is also disrespect toward the values they represent. Not everyone can do this job, standing still for hours without moving or changing positions. Even when they are tired or in pain, they are not allowed to change their stance. Even if they endure mockery or provocation, they are not allowed to react. This is not an easy job, and behind the stoic exterior of the guards is an incredible patience. They do not just stand there as a display. They stand to protect the country's priceless heritage, structures built over centuries. So, when someone disregards all the rules to mock them, it's not just disrespect for the guards, but an offense to the entire royal culture. Contrary to the belief of some, royal guards are not statues or static images that you can freely joke with. They are real people with emotions, and they represent an important, serious job full of responsibility. One reason why many people don't understand the work of royal guards is because they only see the exterior, the soldier in uniform, standing still. But in reality, they are performing a challenging task with little public recognition. So, when you see a guard standing still, don't think it's just a simple job or an easy task. Behind the stern appearance, they are performing an indispensable mission to protect the culture and history of this country. These soldiers are upholding rules and safeguarding the country's heritage, and that deserves respect. In another scenario, a police officer approaches a group of tourists who are trying to get too close and mock the guard. The officer, with a serious expression, says, "Excuse me, this is not a joke. You need to respect these soldiers and the rules here. This is a national monument, not a stage for jokes." One of the tourists, a young man who had been trying to make a joke earlier, doesn't understand why his actions are causing discomfort. He responds, "It's just a picture. Who thought this was serious?" The officer patiently explains, "This is an age-old rule. The guards are not statues. They are people doing a job to protect us and the values this country represents. Please respect them and this culture." The officer's words, though gentle, were clear and helped the tourists realize they had gone too far. In that moment, they not only received a reminder about their actions, but also learned an important lesson about respect and understanding. Royal Guards are not just soldiers, but living symbols, protecting the traditions and heritage of the country. Disrespecting them is not only an act of rudeness toward them, but also an offense to a centuries-old culture. So, before thinking of mocking or joking with these soldiers, ask yourself, do you have enough respect to understand their value? For many people, acts of disrespect may seem like harmless jokes, but in reality, disrespectful actions can sometimes lead to unforeseen consequences. You've likely witnessed scenes where tourists mock or tease the royal guards just to capture those funny moments on social media, but do they really understand the consequences of their actions? A prime example of this occurred last summer when a group of German tourists visited Buckingham Palace. While watching the guards, one tourist, wanting to lighten the atmosphere, decided to challenge one of the guards. He approached the guard and mocked, "Are you tired of standing there? Why don't you move?" The guard remained unresponsive, standing silently. But this tourist didn't stop and added more inappropriate jokes like, "You must be thinking about your dinner, right?" The jokes became increasingly crude and pointless. The video quickly went viral on social media, making the man the center of attention. However, the price to pay was very high. The attention wasn't the admiration he expected. A police officer appeared immediately, stepped forward with a serious demeanor, and asked the group to leave. Although the guard did not take any physical action, in their hearts, they had endured enough. The police had to issue a warning, explaining that disrespectful actions not only violated the rules of the royal area, but were also a serious offense against the soldiers on duty. The police officer not only gave a warning but also demanded that the tourists leave the area and not return for the rest of the day. His words acted as a wake-up call to others who were watching. If you want a real experience here, you need to respect those who are performing their duties and understand the significance of this place. The German tourists didn't fully understand the situation until they were asked to leave. That was when they realized that mocking actions didn't always just cause laughter, but could lead to serious consequences. Contrary to the initial amusement, when asked to leave by the police, they began to feel ashamed and realized that thoughtless jokes have no place in places with rich history and culture. In the end, the big lesson these tourists learned was that respect is not just a personal matter, but a respect for history, culture, and the people who protect it. Royal guards are not objects for mockery, but living symbols representing an entire culture and heritage. Disrespecting them can create negative reactions and unwanted consequences, such as personal shame and harm to others. The most common mistake tourists make when facing royal guards is a lack of understanding of the basic rules of the place. Some people think they can approach the guards in the same way they would treat other service personnel in society. However, this is not the case. Royal guards are not people working in entertainment venues or tourism services. They are individuals carrying out an extremely serious task and are not there to be the subject of mockery. In another situation, a group of American tourists decided to conduct an interesting experiment when they saw a royal guard standing still. They started surrounding him, taking pictures and recording videos. One person in the group, seemingly unaware of the rules, tried to get closer and placed a hand on the guard's shoulder to pose for a photo. The guard didn't react, but his eyes sent an unspoken warning. Before they could understand what was happening, a police officer appeared and asked the group of tourists to stop. The guard still stood still, but the coldness in his demeanor, along with the presence of the officer, made the tourists realize that they had made a serious mistake. One of the major mistakes tourists make is approaching the guard too closely. Although the guards are there to observe and protect, they are still human beings, and no one can constantly endure disrespectful proximity. A group of tourists, wanting to take an impressive photo, got too close, and one of them lightly grabbed the guard's arm, trying to make him turn. The guard didn't change his expression, but his gaze clearly conveyed the message, "You're not allowed to do that." The police immediately approached and asked the tourists to leave. They faced embarrassment and learned a valuable lesson about not only disrespecting the guards, but also ignoring the rules of the royal area. Every time tourists make a mistake when interacting with royal guards, it's an opportunity for them to learn a lesson about respect. Guards are not there to be playthings for tourists, but individuals performing important duties, and they cannot be disturbed while on duty. This lesson not only applies to interacting with the guards, but also in how we treat people around us in society. The story of the American tourists is a typical example of how lack of understanding can lead to awkwardness. Their disrespect led to police intervention and their embarrassed exit. For other tourists, this serves as a reminder that respect isn't just a national rule but a basic principle of all social relationships. Culture is a core part of every country, and a lack of understanding about local culture can lead to unpredictable consequences. When we travel to another country, we're not just exploring landscapes, food, or famous landmarks. More importantly, we are engaging with a culture that has its own values and rules, which, if disrespected, can cause us trouble. For example, in the story about the group of American tourists who acted disrespectfully toward the royal guards. While they thought they were just having fun and drawing attention from their friends with harmless jokes, they didn't realize that each country has specific codes of conduct that people need to respect. This helps maintain harmony in society and reflects maturity and understanding. The lack of understanding about these rules can lead to discomfort, embarrassment, and even police intervention. The earlier story is not just an example of disrespect toward the royal guards, but also a reminder about the importance of learning about a country's culture before visiting. The culture of every place isn't always displayed clearly on signs or instructions, but it's deeply embedded in actions, in the things we do that we sometimes don't even realize. In another incident in a London park, a group of Chinese tourists caused a stir because they didn't understand the importance of maintaining distance from the guards. The entire group stood too close to a guard and started taking photos, not only standing too close, but also intentionally joking and mimicking as though they were provoking the guard. They didn't realize that such actions could make the guard uncomfortable. When the police arrived, the tourists didn't understand why they were being asked to leave. The officer explained that invading the personal space of those performing their duties is not acceptable and could cause discomfort not only for the guards, but also affect the respect tourists should show toward the country they are visiting. This is a clear example of how lack of understanding of the rules can create unwanted situations. Why do some tourists fail to recognize this? Partly because they didn't research the culture before they arrived. Another reason is that disrespect has become ingrained in the habits of some people, making them feel no guilt when doing something thoughtless. This story is similar to that of the German tourists who were intervened by the police after approaching the royal guard too closely. When asked to leave, they realized that every action, no matter how small, can lead to significant consequences. Cultural rules that we don't understand or respect can not only affect us but also damage the image of the country we're visiting. Failing to learn about culture before traveling is one of the biggest mistakes we can make. It not only ruins our trip, but also creates discord between nations and peoples. So, before you travel, take time to study the basic rules, the way to behave, and what to avoid to have a joyful and meaningful trip. Respect is always the core element of any relationship, whether it's between individuals, between tourists and locals, or between those performing special duties like royal guards. Disrespecting others can cause a lot of problems not just for yourself, but for the community around you. If you don't know how to behave and understand the boundaries of respect, you'll end up in trouble, just like the tourists who mocked the royal guards. Every country has its own rules of conduct, and it's important for us to understand and follow these rules, not only to avoid conflict but also to show respect for the cultural values of that country. Respect is the cornerstone for building positive and harmonious relationships between cultures. When you visit a new country, always remember that, even as a tourist, you still need to follow the rules of conduct in that country. If you don't understand a rule, don't hesitate to ask. Be careful with your actions. Avoid gestures that might offend others. Remember that respecting others not only shows your culture, but also demonstrates maturity and understanding. For example, if you visit a place with special rules like a royal palace or historic monuments, pay attention to the signs or announcements around. These rules are not just to protect the landmarks, but also to protect the people in the area. Never think that you can violate them without facing consequences. Respect not only helps you avoid trouble, but also ensures you have a memorable and meaningful trip. If you respect the people around you and their culture, you'll be welcomed warmly and have the chance to experience an amazing culture without enduring embarrassment or unnecessary incidents. Like the story of the American tourists, even though they thought their actions were harmless fun, once they realized their mistake and changed their attitude, they were able to learn an important lesson about respect. And this lesson is not just for them, but for all of us. When I first visited Japan, I was amazed at how everyone around me respected the rules and lifestyle of the country. Whether at temples, in shops, or while standing in line, everyone followed the rules seriously. It was a great experience, and I realized that respecting cultural rules not only helps you avoid trouble, but also makes you feel like you are truly a part of that culture. Respect is an essential element in any trip. When you respect others, you're also respecting yourself and the values you carry. And ultimately, that's the key to having a complete and memorable travel experience. One of the most interesting aspects of observing royal guards is the incredible patience they display in the face of challenges from tourists. Royal guards are not robots, even though their appearance might make people think they are. They are real humans with emotions, with admirable patience, and with an important duty to perform. We can imagine the feeling of a royal guard standing firm for hours, facing a crowd shouting, taking photos, and mocking, yet still not changing position. They might feel tired, they might want to react, but they must maintain patience out of respect for their duty and the national heritage they represent. An interesting story about the patience of royal guards happened last summer when a tourist decided to challenge a guard on duty. This tourist, a young man, tried to stand beside the guard and pretended to play a game by constantly making weird gestures, forcing the guard to face the constant mockery. The guard remained unresponsive. He just stood still, eyes straight ahead, hands firmly gripping his ceremonial staff. The guard's silence wasn't just patience. It also conveyed a powerful message of respect. No matter what the tourist did, the guard remained steadfast in his duty without getting distracted. The story of the royal guards is a lesson on patience and respect. In everyday life, we often face situations where we feel the urge to react immediately, especially when we are insulted or mocked. However, the lesson from the royal guards is that sometimes we need to remain calm and not let disrespectful actions distract us from our duties. One of the key moments in life is learning how to be patient and face challenges without letting emotions take over our actions. The story of the royal guards standing firm under tourists' mockery is a testament to the strength of patience. They don't respond with harsh words or excessive actions, but instead, they stand their ground and perform their duties excellently. Respect isn't just shown through words, but also through actions. Maintaining composure, patience, and not reacting when provoked is an important part of showing respect to others. This applies not only to royal guards, but to all social interactions. Learning to control our emotions in tense situations will help us avoid unnecessary consequences. The story of the royal guards is a significant lesson on respect. Every action of theirs, even a simple glance, can send a powerful message. It's about maintaining personal principles without being influenced by external factors. It's also a lesson on how we need to treat those around us in society with respect and understanding. In all of these stories, one thing is clear. Respect is a key element in maintaining harmonious relationships and avoiding unnecessary conflicts. Whether it's royal guards or anyone else in society, every person has important duties and roles that deserve respect. Disrespecting others not only harms them, but also devalues ourselves. From the story of the tourists mocking the royal guards, we can see that ignorance and lack of respect can lead to serious consequences. However, through these situations, everyone can learn valuable lessons about patience, respect, and how to behave appropriately in any circumstance. We can see that, from the unconscious actions of tourists to the patient reactions of the royal guards, this story is not only a lesson about culture but also a reminder about the importance of respect in life. No matter who you are or where you are, respect is always the key to maintaining harmony and avoiding unnecessary conflicts. The tourists, after being asked to leave, not only realized they had made a mistake, but also gained a deeper understanding of the importance of learning and respecting local culture. The royal guards, though standing silently for long hours, convey a powerful and clear message of responsibility and patience. Respect is not just a courtesy, but an essential part of maturity and understanding. We not only learn about the places we visit, but also how to respect the people around us, understanding the value of the little things in life. The story of the royal guards and the tourists is a clear example that, in life, only respect and understanding help us avoid unnecessary troubles and build strong relationships. Finally, respect is a timeless lesson, and it is the key to creating meaningful travel experiences and a peaceful life full of understanding and empathy. When you go anywhere in the world, remember that each country has its own rules, traditions, and values that must be respected. This is how you become a conscious traveler and a part of the global community. Thank you for following the story until the end. I hope the lesson of respect will continue to accompany you in every step and journey you take.